So welcome to Ecosystem North. I'm Jamie Sunsbach. Each week, Ecosystem North shines a spotlight on the people and organizations that support our region's entrepreneurs, uncovering the real story of what inspires and drives them to be entrepreneurial champions. So this episode of the podcast is going to be a little bit different. I was fortunate enough to be a guest on our next guest's podcast recently and thought I would return the favor. And I'm really excited to have him here because he's definitely someone that has inspired a lot of what I do in my life and encouraged me to continue down the path I have with my profession of ecosystem building. So I thought it would be amazing to get him on the show. He's one of the most insightful people I've ever met, and he continues to motivate me and to just be an all-around good guy. So please welcome Travis Wilson from Wilson Career Coaching.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. And you get the best award for the best sounding setup, probably even better than mine, because pretty much everybody's using headphones right now.
Well, I wanted to go for the best when it came to sound, so I set up a recording studio in my walk-in closet. So we have my IKEA boxes behind me where I have where I have clothes and other accoutrement, and I've got my sleeping bag here to try to deaden the sound, and only the best for you, Jamie.
Hey, that's what entrepreneurs do. They find a way, and definitely, I think it's a pretty cool setup.
Thank you. Well, and even the podcast microphone I got I got on Amazon, but because of COVID, everybody's starting a podcast now, and that's one of those weird things that every store is out of. That and bread machine yeast. My wife and I cannot, for the life of us, find bread machine yeast anywhere.
Huh. Interesting. I know there's this whole like crazy West Coast fascination with sourdough, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I every time I listen to a podcast that's based out of California, it's like everybody's talking about their sourdough recipe, and I'm like, really? Like that's what you spend? I guess that's fine, but it's like the big trendy thing. It's like, oh, well, your culture is started blah 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 3 years ago, and I'm like, so I guess everybody just quarantined and started making sourdough bread, which must smell
Everyone, sourdough
good
bread,
yet disgusting.
podcasts, and yeah. Well, I guess, to tie it back to being an entrepreneur, I think it is a way for people to connect even more strongly with their purpose and to get out there and create. And that's, where everyone is delving into new and different hobbies that more than they have been in the past. You have everything that you're doing. I'm starting a podcast. I'm looking to debut that on Labor Day. I've done several interviews for that. But it speaks to that human need to put, just to contribute, to put something out there in the world. And that's what an entrepreneur does.
Yep, absolutely. So before we dive too much into entrepreneurship, or I think something we'll talk a lot about, entrepreneurship, could you give us a little bit of a background of where you grew up? I know you spent some time here in Rochester, so maybe some thoughts about living in Rochester, and just let the audience know a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I identify as a Midwesterner. I'm very much a Midwesterner. Born and raised in Iowa, actually, right outside the Des Moines, Iowa area, a little town called Waukee. Well, it was a little town when I was growing up, and now it's pretty much a suburb. I think it has about 19,000 people there. It was only 2,500 when I was growing up, but I was just a, small town, Iowa guy. You ride your bike to the convenience store to get a slice of pizza, or your garbage pail kids, playing on the playgrounds, hanging out at the, the city park, and, Nintendo started, so you're hanging out with friends and getting into video games, but a very, very small town, atmosphere. Grade school, high school, all done with the same group of, roughly the same group of around 60 people that that I was in my graduating class, about 69 people. Went from there to the University of Iowa, and I think that's where my black sheepedness started to kind of seep in, if you will. I tend to not do anything by way of the traditional path, and if anything, I feel like my life is a collection of, oh wow, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things completely differently, which I know is true for many people, but or more simply, not just differently, but more, more simply. I guess I'm really proud of the way in which I've uh, tripped and stumbled and ran and succeeded in order to get to where it is that I am now. I went into my undergrad experience with a degree in business. I then switched that to communication studies and film production, and that just accessed a part of creativity that and way of looking at the world that aids me today. Learning more about film theory and film criticism and genre and everything along those lines, the production aspect, which, oh my gosh, is just, as we can easily say, has just changed immensely. I know I found some real uh, uh, comrades when I talk about doing old deck to deck editing on three quarter inch tape, and we had one nonlinear editing system with a whole 7 gig array, like 7 gigs. My gosh, could you possibly ever imagine there being more gigs in the in the world, and how and how expensive it would be? Well, um, it it uh uh it was a great experience. It was a great way for me to, like I said, to delve into my creativity, and it's very emblematic and symbolic of the way in which the world evolves and changes and turns in ways in which never you never thought possible. I mean, just more, the more computing power in our pockets, and than I had as I was, working on those computers back in the day. Um, I graduated from undergrad. I moved to Chicago, to work in the at the time the big Midwestern hub for the film industry. Decided it wasn't for me. I worked on some independent. I worked on an independent film. I worked at a production company. Decided it wasn't for me. And when you don't know what you want to do with your life, what do, Jamie?
How you run away.
You go to grad school. It's like running away,
True.
but more expensive.
You run away. Yeah, you run away to an education. Yeah, absolutely.
You go to grad school. It's running away, but more expensive. So I enrolled in graduate school. I was accepted at Northwestern University, and I ended up um, obtaining a master's in education and social policy. Now, I'll take a step back and talk a little bit about how I got there, because I think that it speaks to that entrepreneur's value of finding a way. Like even when you don't know what to do, you find a way to find the way. I decided I wanted to leave film. I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I went online, took one of those personality tests, and and it offered me some insights that at the time were very helpful and helped guide me in the direction in which I felt I should go, which is working with people in a capacity in which I felt I was advising or counseling them. So I thought that my next step would be a high school guidance counselor. And I thought my next step would be a high school guidance counselor, but I decided that then I'd have to work with high school students, and I didn't know if I had the wherewithal to be able to work with high school students. Do you have a high school student in the household now?
Yes, I do. That is, I was just going to say, as a parent of a high school, now sophomore, I could take one, and barely. I can't imagine trying to work with kids who are that young and saying, "Hey, here's your career path," or that's just wow.
Yeah.
That is one of the toughest jobs.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't have the wherewithal to be able to do that. Too cowardly. So I thought about to my undergraduate experience, and I thought of something like academic advising. Well, I don't, I'm like, okay, what do I do on that? Well, the internet wasn't new, but it was new-ish, at the time. So, I knew I was in the Chicago area. I knew there was such a thing as academic advisors. So I sent out an email to some academic advisors at different universities, and I just said, hey, this sounds crazy, but how do you do, how do you do what you do? What do you do what you do? Would you be willing to have what I learned later? Again, what you don't know what you don't know until you stumble into it is, would you be willing to do an informational interview with me? And someone from Northwestern University, and he still might be there, said, yeah, sure, come on in, I'll talk with you. And so we had a great conversation. He told me, about getting a master's in higher education, and oh, by the way, Northwestern has a program, and was very kind of helped give me the information to help get me going, which is what brought me to going into the master's program at Northwestern, which led to me going on the career path that I went down. But yeah, I mean, it was just that when you realize there's always a way. There is always a way. It may not be down the route that you want to go down, or it may butt against some rules or some ideas in your head on how it's supposed to be. But there's no excuse in this, and there was no excuse back in 2000, and there's no excuse now to not be able to, if it's something that you really want, to be able to try to find your way to be able to to be able to get there. So got my master's. I worked in higher education for a while. I worked at a small school in Iowa, Grinnell College, for 3 years in residence life. That is the boss of the RAs, for those who don't know. And I got to tell you, there is a special place in heaven for those who work in residence life. And you come out of, I mean, you want to talk about different experiences that can help prepare you for anything. It's definitely not the military, but in one night when you're dealing with students who've overdosed on alcohol and are having mental health issues, and all of those common struggles that amplified that college students are prone to, you come out you come out different. You come out having gone through a fire and having a wisdom base to lean back on in order to succeed in the in the future. And I definitely would credit my success for working in residence life. Well, I moved out of residence life by way of a job posting in training and development and human resources at the university. I moved to St. Louis University, and saw a notice for a training and development specialist there. And I was like, I've been doing training and development work for a long time in this field. So maybe I have something to offer here. Well, I applied for the job. I gave a presentation, and ended up landing the role. And I'm smiling a little bit because the presentation I used a mouse clicker, one of those remote clickers, which are totally uninteresting right now. But back in the day, back in the mid 2000s, when they weren't around, it was just, it just blew people's minds. Just like, wait a minute, he's presenting, but he's not going back to hit the next arrow on the on the thing. So I was able to stay locked in and engaged on my audience, and I'm sure that was part of the reason why I was hired. But it's the tool, but it's the way in which you properly use the tool, and the way in which you use the tool to be able to connect and to engage. Another lesson I feel around entrepreneurship. People badmouth PowerPoint. Well, it's not. PowerPoint is neutral. It's not PowerPoint's fault that we do crappy presentations. It's our fault that we do crappy presentations. And that's a choice that we adopt to be safe. It's a choice that we adopt in order to to fit an expectation or need that we have there. And it's the remarkable presentations are the ones that you're so absorbed in the speaker and what they're saying and what they're doing and the presentation, you hardly notice the PowerPoint unless it's really crappy PowerPoint. So again, it's not the tool's fault. It's not the tool's fault that that things break and fail. So, moving on, I worked in that role for a while, and then March 2009, I was sitting next to a young lady who I recently became engaged to, and she opened her medical school match day envelope that said, "Congratulations, you're going to be a resident at Mayo Clinic." Now, Jamie, bear in mind, I've told friends before that I could never see a flake of snow the rest of my life and be a happy person. And yeah, I'll still say that. And here I am. I'm going to, go where snow goes to party, and that was my, going to, that was my story to go into, to move to Rochester, and I'll try to make my story a little bit more abbreviated, but suffice to say, in 2009, when the economy was absolutely awful, not as awful as it is now, but it was a really bad economy then. I struggled to find a job. Luckily, I was able to find one 1 week before we got married. So I moved up the week before we got married. Interviewed for a job, was offered, accepted the role, and then we got married in Illinois that following Saturday. And during my time in Rochester, I underwent some other career transitions too. I became a certified coach through the Coaches Training Institute. I landed a role at a Mayo Clinic in their College of Education, and then I moved on to their Leadership and Organization Development Department. I think it's gone through a couple of name changes there, and it was incredible. Just coaching and working with some of the best minds, best minds in the world, real opportunities to model and to see and witness vulnerability, and just really the important real skill, human skill types of doing that type of work. That is what helps drive the other work, the more tactical scientific work forward. So it was a great experience. And then in 2016, my wife got a role at Washington University as a GI oncologist there, and that's what brought us back down to St. Louis. And so we live here in St. Louis. We acquired two children while we were in Minnesota, and we moved down here and decided we had too much sleep and money, so we have one more little guy. So we're doing well. We're doing our best to thrive while we're down here. But connecting, I started really connecting with you and the entrepreneur community when around the time I was leaving, and that's what tugged on my heartstrings the most. I I I wasn't sure how much I was going to miss Rochester when I left, but let me tell you, I really missed it after when I was gone, and just you and the friendship that we had struck up and have continued has been great to do virtually. But the way in which we engaged together near the end of our the way in which we engaged together near the end of our time was such a bright spot. And looking at you and how you evolved over the time too, from BioAM to Collider and where you are right now, is nothing short of remarkable. And just the great work that you're doing, I hope you really take some time to take the breath in and breath out and just give yourself credit for.
Well, speaking of breath in, breath out, I think you need some.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but
Ah, a
yeah,
little long-winded, I know.
I think for me, thinking about, I think the first time we met was still while I was at Mayo. I was
Yeah.
doing sort of this bioam stuff on the side as much as I could, but I think my real goal at that point was to be more of an entrepreneur. Like I wanted to, I had this grand vision in my head that I could bring the gospel of entrepreneurship to Mayo Clinic.
Hmm.
And I remember, chatting with you in those very early days, and you were one of the first people that actually challenged some things I was saying. Everybody's like, sounds great. Sounds great. And you're like, well, think about this way, or and that's when I knew I was like, you're a keeper for me, right? As a friend, I wanna make sure that I'm not surrounding myself with a bunch of people who are like, well, of course, exactly what you're saying, and that's the tiny little thought they're going to put into it.
And
Um,
that's and that's I was listening to a podcast actually with Tim Ferriss, and I know you're a fan of Tim Ferriss, and that at least I presume you still are. We haven't talked about him in a while, but he interviewed Dr. Adam Grant, and who's you have two titans of leadership and thought leadership there. And Dr. Adam Grant talked about the importance of having a challenge network, and those who aren't going to be, just kind of like nodding their head and being, yes women or yes men to, to all of your ideas, but to help you shape your repertoire in such a way in which you are, you're better, and you're stronger in your values, you're meeting your goals, you're meeting your goals better. And a great way to do that is a challenge network. And I guess I didn't have that term at the time, but I definitely sound myself as being a part of your challenge network, and you a part of mine, because we cared for each other so much that and care for each other so much that we weren't just going to let the good enough slide.
yep, absolutely. Um, wow, we had quite a bromance, I think, in studio.
And
Um,
it continues to this day, folks.
yes, absolutely. So, one of the things that I think we first collaborated with externally is, and it was spelled very funny. It was a class we did based on, I'm going to say the words, Seth Godin, Seth
Who?
Godin's Krypton course. Who?
Yeah.
Um, and we I remember we even called it Collider. So this is before there was a foundation, before there was a co-working space with a very similar name. And we spelled it kind of funny. It was COLIDR.
Yeah, well,
Um,
if it's a start, you have to take out the vowels in order to, in order to make it startup-y.
yep, it's hip and trendy. So you were our facilitator for that class, and it's amazing to think about the people that went through that short course. I shouldn't call it a class; it's more like a short introduction of the it's a Krypton course. Um, but that was a game changer for me. That was phenomenal. I mean, that was the first time, and I've done this many times. I had to go to IKEA. We had that old back room for a while in the C4 building, which is now demolished, and there's a beautiful bank and high rise there where it was. And then we moved over to Cube Co-working, and it was just a fantastic moment in my life because that was the first time I found a tribe of people that were thinking like me, that were motivated to do these bigger and better things. And it was so critical to me to have you there sort of facilitating and challenging and it just really made a huge impact on my life. So I always say if it wasn't for that course we ran, I would have probably just eventually I would have gotten beaten down too many times by things that happen, and I would have just hung my head and went back to Mayo, and I'd probably still be there, and I'd probably be a very, very sad person right now. So you were a huge part of that for sure.
Well, that's really nice of you to say, and and there's a bit to unpack there, as well. First of all, going back to what we were talking about earlier about finding a way, there was a group of people, and you I know specifically that you and maybe some others had the need first. It was like, we have this need, we don't know what it is, and we have to do something about it. Hey, Travis, you seem to be part of our tribe. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, well, there's a structure here. There's some frameworks, and really nothing of substance gets done without some ingenuity and some discussion to, harken back to a guest you had on recently, Dr. Natalie Nixon, rigor and wonder. Let's get together and through a framework, through discussion, through listening and inquiry and curiosity and support and challenge, find out what can come of this. And that's what we did. We just we weren't sure what it was. We weren't sure what was going to happen, but we're like, let's just, let's try it. This is so safe to try. So, so we did. And again, I mean, that just harkens back to the spirit and the ethos of being, being entrepreneur, of just finding a need and then working to, to meet that. And then, you found a new way to connect with values that are very important to you, in a way in which being an employee for a larger organization just wasn't doing it for you. And that's for those who find the way in which being within that larger organization connects with them and helps activate them. That's great. Good for you. And I'm very, very much a champion for that. But if you're not in that, if that's not for you, or if you're finding that the value that you are is not being valued where you are, you need to shift, and you need to make a pivot and go somewhere else, and and do something else. And that's what you chose to do. And looking at you and your career, Jamie, what I appreciate and admire about you is you don't seem to be the one who's going to say, like, this is forever, whatever, because we're dynamic, we shift, we change, our needs change. And you see it all the time, like people who break out of the corporate shackles and like, I'm going to go do something else, and I'm going to, go and sit on the beach and, take the toe photo and be like, I'm at work today, and, with the ocean in the background. Well, then, after a couple of years of seeing how it's not quite what it's so Instagrammy cracked up to be, they go back into corporate, or into a larger organization with a new perspective and set of values, and with a new intent and purpose. And that's completely fine too. I find I'm getting a masterclass in leadership in the work that I'm doing right now. and I'm full-time employed, but I'm also, I also have this other work that I'm doing on the side because nothing is going to completely, fulfill all of those needs that you have. But I'm getting a masterclass in leadership, engaging with entrepreneurs, and also working in this, in an organization. And change doesn't happen without without creating the learning the cultural context and nuances in order for you to help elevate your voice, not by being loud, but by being remarkable and important, and to you know embrace the different ways in which you find yourself meeting needs for the groups that you're meeting a need for.
So turning to today,
Yeah.
obviously, unfortunately, you've left us, but you're always with us in spirit. Um, the work that we've done here in the community through the foundation. I mean, we've gone out and we really, with the goal of listening first. We're going and listening to entrepreneurs. We're hearing issues. We're hearing positive things. We're just there to listen, and that's really what really I think makes Collider Foundation so special, because we really do put that entrepreneurs first, because we listen to them. We don't create this catch-all program that we kind of shove down their throats as some of the new hip trendy thing or whatever it is. We're listening to them, and if it doesn't exist in the community, we're working to co-create that with others. So a big thing that we've found over the last 2 years of really listening is how many entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, when you think about our larger corporates here in the community, they really lack a lot of what I call the basics, which is self-confidence, leadership skills. Um, they seem to want to ask permission for everything, but they're these amazingly intelligent people that have amazingly earth-changing ideas, world-changing ideas, but they really lack those fundamentals. So it's been a real challenge for us. And that's why I wish you were still here, because you need to be the one, I think, in many cases, because you're so good at it, to help these people with these basic skills. We used to talk about, what's top of the funnel. We thought top of the funnel for us was, we're going to give you the basics of entrepreneurship 101. That's the top of the funnel. But what we're finding is the top of the funnel is really what I call you versus yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to have that confidence. You've got to give yourself permission to take that leap. And I know it's super hard and it's super scary, but I just thought if you could speak a little to that concept of instilling these sort of leadership and confidence, and it's just something that is so missing in our community right now. And just trying to think about how we as a community can help these people really get off on the right foot so that they create the quality companies of the future.
There was research out of the University of Chicago years ago, and I feel awful that I can't remember the researchers' names, but the thrust of the research was this: is if somebody is new at something, just overly heap praise and positivity on them, in order just to get them started, in order to help get them interested and connected and engaged, to help them make their way up to expert. Once you have that confidence, and I loved how you said that, it's like this kind of this game with yourself, or this you against yourself, is once you have that confidence to be able to have your sea legs under you and even be better, that's when the more harsh and the challenge network and that more it doesn't have to be aggressive, it doesn't have to be biting, but that more direct feedback comes, because that's what an expert wants, is they want to be better, and if you are somebody in their network, or if you have such a status for them to be able to do that, that's what they want. So when you talk about the community means everything, and just knowing that there are people in the community that are just like, and I'm sure Jamie, you've encountered them, and I know you've encountered them where it's like, I feel at home here. I don't know why I'm here. I just want to make some collisions. I want to collide. I want to make some associations with people because there's something inside of me. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm working. This is part of my process to be able to try to define it. So number one, it's that it's the welcoming community. Derek Severs, that famous TED talk that he did where one person's dancing on a hill and then another person comes in and he goes, now notice this. It's the warm embrace. They high five each other, and then and just the two of them being together, then another person comes and then they make it safe for then the whole group of like 20 people, 20 people to come. That's a role that you and Collider play, but it's also a role that anybody can play in order to create that the strength and the shared values and the welcoming place where people where people can go. It's also a tenuous place because the 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 echoes of that first experience can resonate with with people, particularly those who might be really really nervous. And if they don't have that good experience, the first time with Collider, it could either inadvertently or wrongly have them to say like, well, there's no support for me here, within a community, which is not, which is definitely not true. So the welcoming community, I think, is part of it. And and I think another part too is the willingness to see yourself as worthy, to see yourself as worthy. So I'm I'm not going to promote my podcast right now, but I want to promote the idea around my podcast. The podcast is called I Picked Me. And it's not me, it's you. It's the person who said to themselves, I'm not waiting for permission. I'm not waiting for the credential. I'm not waiting for the blessing. I'm not waiting for, for any of these things. There is a need that there's a need whose time has come. There's a need that's time has come. I'm going to do my best to help fulfill that need, to make a community, this community that I'm looking to serve, whatever that is, stronger and better and closer, and and lead with them in that in that particular way. And I there's that's to me the heart of entrepreneurship. It is, it's not about selling the widgets or creating the consulting skills. It's you create a apparatus and system by which you are helping to make others better. But if you need the community, you need the wherewithal and the temerity to say that I'm the one who can help here. I'm going to pick myself to help here, and then and I'd say the third ingredient is to just get really empathetically close and intimate to those you are serving, and the way in which you are there to serve them. And I use that word empathy with reverence, but also with a clear point of view. Empathy isn't condoning or capitulating. Empathy is understanding someone so well and then creating something to say this might be able to help you, while saying no to those who that thing that you're creating for is not, it's not there to help. Okay, anybody can walk into your I use this example kind of often, but in Lower Manhattan, I think it's still there. I don't know if it is or not, but in Lower Manhattan, there was an experimental ice cream shop called Ice and Vice. Anybody can walk into their store. Anyone can legally walk into their store, but they are not for everybody. If you're looking for vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry, you're going to encounter like whiskey barrel and chicory tea and all of these different kinds of flavors. What a cool thing! What a way to celebrate! What a great way to take something, and then for those who love food experimentation and are foodies and are looking for something different than the normal Baskin Robbins or Ben and Jerry's, which are still great. You have something for them. You made something for them. And for those, in that way, you don't take umbrage to those who who go into the store and say, "What the hell's going on here? Where's there, strawberry or chocolate or vanilla?" Like, oh, okay, I get it. I empathize with you. If I were expecting normal ice cream flavors, and I came into a place that didn't have those, I would be upset as well. You know what? You'd be best served by going to Ben and Jerry's. It's 2 blocks up and 3 blocks over. Tell Gus we said hi. We're good friends with him. So I think it's those three things. Just to kind of to summarize, it's having the community that fuels you, the people around you that fuel you, regardless of the change you're trying to make. Number two, having the again the wherewithal and the temerity to say that I can do this. This is something I can do. This is something important to me. And then number three, having having the empathy to know what you're doing it for, who you're doing it for, and being very tuned in to that particular audience while also saying no to those who you're not there to serve.
Yep. No, that's perfect. And I think there's a whole class we could offer people based on what you just said. So we'll talk later. But it's been a challenging last 6, 7, 8 months
Yeah.
due to so many things in the world. And so we always ask everyone, what's a real bright spot in the last 6, 7 months for you? What was that bright thing that you said, out of all this chaos and tragedy, that something happened that's so positive and was able to be put into the world, even though, it's been really tough times.
I'm going to couch my response and say new awakenings. I've I've awakened to I've awakened to a couple of different things. Number one, my relationships. I think my relationship with my children and with my wife are much stronger than stronger than they've ever been. After the first couple of weeks in COVID, when you're in quarantine in your house, you get to a point where you look at each other and you say to yourself, okay, we have a choice in how this is going to be. How do we want this to be? And that's not to say that there's that it's completely smooth, but you come to value. I've come to value my wife. I've already always valued her, but just just value the way in which that she contributes to the relationship and just the magic that she brings to my life. I've never felt that close to it as I have now, and I look to try to deepen that every day. My relationship with my kids, I'm working from home. Yesterday, blocking time in the schedule so that my son and I can go out and practice riding his bike. In the afternoon, it was snack break time, so we went out and we sat on our deck chairs, and it was just beautiful. It was 80 degrees, and there was no humidity, and there's not a cloud in the sky, and we just ate tortilla chips and salsa, and just kind of talked about life and how what was going on, and it's just deepening my relationship with them has been a huge bright spot, and just kind of the new awakenings to the way in which I you have those opportunities you had those opportunities in the past, but you try not to lament those, and just kind of take what you're learning now and then to move forward with it. So I lived in Rochester, Minnesota when Michael Brown was murdered down in Missouri, and I lived in St. Louis, Missouri when George Floyd was murdered up in Minneapolis. And like many people, my sense of responsibility and culpability came through during those during that horrific time, and thinking about the way in which I engaged and I did not engage in racial injustice and systemic racism, uh, has I feel it's a scar that I'm looking to that I'm looking to heal and looking to try to better. And I'm engaging more in my community with the police department and with my local legislators. Being more attuned to having race conversations with my family, and talking with them about that, and just sitting in the discomfort of the what now, but knowing that the only way through it. And again, this is a competency of entrepreneurship. The only way through it is to work through the discomfort. And I have to channel artist Chuck Close when he says inspiration is for amateurs. Professionals show up and get to work. And that's what a great entrepreneur does is, yes, there's definitely times to kind of like pause and reflect, but that's an active pause and an active reflection. The way in which you get to that point where you can do that is by doing some actual work. So I'm trying to do some actual work there by way of that awakening. And I think the last thing too is just a new sensitivity for and a new awakening in terms of my own well-being. Like many people probably listening to this podcast, work, go, just kind of put your head down and get through it. Well, there were some days where I literally I would just close the laptop lid and be like, I'm done, and I wouldn't open it, for the rest of the night, which doesn't sound, all that remarkable, but that particular element of self-care was very, very, very big for me. Um, Getting a subscription to the Calm app, and I did my meditation today too, which is, I've done that in the past, but just taking this new kind of devotion to self-care, and knowing that it's not a thing that shows weakness or a lacking, but just knowing that it's something that's going to help make me more the person that I want to be. So I would say
Yep.
that that's the bright spot, are those new awakenings that came through some very difficult circumstances.
No, three good things and three very important things too. That's great. We're on the downside of the podcast here. So this is where just two more questions,
Yeah.
actually three. But what is one thing that people may not know about you?
One thing that people may not know about me. I am dictator for life of my graduating high school class. So I ran for class president my junior year, going into my senior year, and I got the application in the office, and it said, class president, and I was like, I don't want to be class president. So I scratched that out and I wrote dictator for life. And I went out and I got the requisite signatures from my high school classmates. I ran, I won, and so now I have this title of being the dictator for life of the Waukee High School class of 1995.
Wow, that
It's a
when
lot
you
of
talk about,
responsibility, though.
yeah, that's a lot of responsibility, and there could be a potential coup. So watch your back.
I will have to. I will have to. But yeah, I feel pretty safe given what everybody else has to deal with right now. They're probably not too worried about that. In fact, they're probably wondering more what I should be doing for them.
So typically we ask people, to name maybe a few other people doing great work to help support entrepreneurs in the region. But
Mhm.
I thought maybe a different twist on what we could talk about is a very special relationship you have with one Seth Godin.
Yeah, yeah.
Inspired so many of us. So I think that's a great jumping off spot to talk a little bit about his work and what inspires you about it, but also just that relationship you've managed to cultivate.
Yeah, yeah. So Seth Godin, I've been a fan of his work. I mean, I remember living in St. Louis in 2008, and every day going to his blog and just reading his blog posts and being just very inspired by the way in which, he looked at the world and what he observed, what he shared. It wasn't, these blog posts aren't the longest blog posts in the world. Sometimes they're just a couple of sentences, but he's going for a way in which I have a melding of values with him where we try to get under people's skin. That's where change happens, is when you get under the skin of people. And he got under my skin a lot. It was, oh my gosh, I want to say, I think it was 2017. He was launching a workshop called the Marketing Seminar. And on the second to last day, I was talking to my wife about it. She's like, why don't you sign up for that? I think, we can swing it financially, and I think it's something that'd be really good for you. So I did. I signed up on the second to last day, and I engaged with it, and it was just an absolute incredible experience for me. You basically, marketing isn't advertising; it is change making. And if you're looking to make change for anyone on anything, you are looking to be a marketer. Entrepreneurs are marketers. Okay. And that we'll save that for another podcast. So I was engaging in the discussion board of this workshop, and I'll for brevity I'll cut it down. I'll cut down the story, but suffice to say that he was this was a new thing for him, and he was very active in the workshop and answering questions and providing encouragement. Well, he noticed my work, and he reached out to me and said, I'm looking at how you're responding to people in this workshop, and you are matching the entire posture that I want to try to further in this and future workshops. Would you be interested in being a coach for me? And I mean, imagine being a filmmaker and having Steven Spielberg or Paul Thomas Anderson, or just somebody, a very renowned director calling you and saying, hey, do you want to do a film with me? Or LeBron James contacting you and saying, hey, do you want to play basketball with me? Or Oprah calling you and saying, hey, do you want to do a television show with me? You're just like, yes, of course, I would love to do that. He sent me his phone number. I stared at my phone for an hour before I got the guts to call him. I got him on the phone. We talked about the arrangement, and I've been associated with him and his Akimbo workshop community for years now. And I have the honor of calling him a friend. I call him a mentor. Had the opportunity to go out and visit him and the team in February 2018. To talk, some workshop strategy, to kind of visit headquarters, and I'm connected with, for the rest of my life. I'm connected to a group of people who sound like I sound, who think like I think, who want what I want, who are dreamers and doers and discoverers. And if I ever need a modicum of support, an ounce of support, I have a group to go to be able to do that. Which again, we're just tie it back into entrepreneurship. This is, you need your community like that. You need that community who's on the journey with you. They're not, they're saying what you're saying. It may not be in the same language, but you're still talking about the same kind of thing, and the outputs may be different, but the values are all the same. And I totally see echoes of that again in the work that you're doing, and all of those associated and around you are doing, Jamie. So I have to give you and the Collider team kudos for just for being who you are and for doing what it is that you're doing. It's incredible.
I always humbly say, well, we're trying. No, thank you for those gracious words. So just to wrap this up, where can people find you if they want to learn more about everything that's Travis Wilson?
Well, my web designer and I were texting each other yesterday. So I'm starting a new endeavor called Intentional Professional. And so if you go to intentionalprofessional.com, maybe not right now, but in the future, in the soon future, we're working to get that put up there. But I want to help people in corporate be better for themselves and for their for their companies, because there is a lot of untapped perspective and power that people within large companies have. And I want to be I want to create generous sleeper cells of people who can ascend the ranks and then be rainmakers for those that come under them, that share values of generosity and contribution and curiosity and vulnerability, to help bring new elements of contribution and responsibility to larger companies. So intentionalprofessional.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and you can even if you're interested, I would love to hear from people. You can email me at wilsonconsultingllc@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Travis, for taking the time to be with us today and share your story. And it's always great to talk to an old friend, and just best of luck with everything, and take care.
Likewise. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.